Hi, this is Camille Barbone from Camille Barbone Coaching. Today we're going to talk about the inner critic. Notorious, elusive, and almost always out of control. It's a popular topic in psychology and neuroscience books. It's been given names like self-talk, the devil on your shoulder, the inner witness, and more. But regardless of what you call it, the nagging voice inside your head has a lot to say about how you conduct your life. It sets the tone and mood for your behavior, your actions, decisions, and successes or the lack thereof. It tints or taints your every thought, playing on your insecurities and childhood hurts. The inner voice will never go away, so you must make peace with it, controlling the exchanges and turning it into a supportive witness to your life successes. After all, you are the voice inside your head. According to Freud, the inner critic is fueled by our life experiences and is central to the development of a person's superego, which is another word for how we see ourselves. As we live our lives and accept societal and ethical norms, the inner critic delivers a steady stream of behavioral expectations, which are usually inflated, unrealistic, and negative because they are byproducts of our old core beliefs. Core beliefs are supposed to help us make sense of life experiences, but as we get older, they become too rigid and unbending. They distort the reality and they can harm us. For example, we may hold a core belief about ourselves that says we communicate poorly, or that we are incompetent or flawed in other ways. Our inner critic takes that message and runs with its negative power, drawing attention to your perceived faults and bad behavior. It negates your achievements, dismissing them as accidental or mere luck. It replays past mistakes and cripples you in the present. The inner voice is at the bottom of most of our regrets, anger, anxiety, guilt, and shame. It sets us up to fail. It's a beast, and it wants to stop us dead. It wants us to doubt every decision we make and every action we take. It wants us to agree with its opinion that we are losers. It's sadistic and punishing. When the superego is working overtime and the inner critic is battering our brains, it's easy to feel drained and at an emotional and psychological disadvantage. Over time, the inner critic delivers enough information to form a critical, damning, and destructive opinion of ourselves. For the sake of health, of success, and the hope for a happy life, we must look for ways to control and silence the inner critic in order to ignore the parade of negativity. It's time to challenge the inner critic, to control the dialogue and oppose the negative messages. We must confront this voice. We must smother it with objective facts and stop reacting to its lies. In order to control it, the inner critic must be taken seriously. We must firmly state and believe that its message is wrong and based on flawed information, and we must let go of it as misinformation. Remember to identify the inner critic each time it talks to you. Notice how it addresses each topic, how it taints ideas, and plays with your most inner emotions. Separate the negative messages of your inner critic from who you truly are. You must silence it, and here are a few simple ways to get the job done. But remember, it takes practice. Let's talk about a few ways to control the inner critic. First one is the ACT method. Identify and label your inner critic each time it speaks to you, acknowledging and recognizing its very existence is real. Name it, something that is significant to you. Without judgment, watch it bombard you with negativity and horrific thoughts, observing its destructive behavior. Remind yourself that the dialogue is flawed, just noise without merit or importance, and it has nothing to do with you. Remember, there's a huge difference between thinking you cannot communicate effectively and thinking that your inner critic is suggesting that you are a terrible communicator. Create distance between you and the inner critic. Be as objective as you can. Make a promise to yourself to not take the message seriously. Perhaps saying something like, "Here we go again, more inner critic negativity." This might help. Then you have to let go of it, ignore it, and move on. The second method is called the positive intelligence approach. In this one, you name the inner critic, the judge, who is constantly weighing in and ruling on your behavior and the behaviors of others. Observe the judge in action, and whenever you notice yourself judging you or someone else, say something like, "The big-mouthed judge is in the house, spewing nonsense again." You must discredit the message. In addition, each time the inner critic speaks, You can focus on one of your senses for about 1 or 2 minutes. Concentrate on your breathing or the sounds you're hearing or the textures of the surfaces within your reach. Get out of your own head and away from the inner critic. Remain anchored in your body and empathize with yourself and others about the unfairness of an inner critic. Connect yourself emotionally and substitute positives for negatives each time the inner critic rears its ugly head. The third method is called CBT. It's based on the fact that your inner critic is not logical. The objective is to weaken its impact. It produces irrationally negative interpretations and assessments of you and others. Use reason to diffuse its explosive impact on you. Debate the negative interpretations vigorously, using intellect instead of emotion to see through the lies. Focus on facts, not feelings, and see the fraud of your inner critic. It's a liar, a cheat, a troublemaker, and of no use to you in a happy life. Capture your thoughts in a log and analyze them to see that it is unfounded criticism, nothing more. Look for patterns and triggers. Once identified, avoid and diffuse them as they come up. It takes mental discipline, but once you break through, the inner critic will be silenced. The fourth method is called catching your critic. Monitor critical statements and those directed at the self and made by your inner critic that are directed inward. Number them, capture them throughout the day, recording the statements and the times each one happened. At day's end, evaluate all the recorded thoughts, rating them as either positive or negative, and whether or not they had impact on your life. At day's end, evaluate all the recorded thoughts, rating them either positive or negative, and whether or not the impact was good or bad. Look for trends and interrupt the dialogue when you're receiving it, using a trigger or interruption word that you decide on. Each time the inner critic speaks, focus on one of your senses for about 1 or 2 minutes. Concentrate on your breathing, or the sounds you're hearing, or the textures of the surfaces within your reach. Just get out of your head and away from the inner critic. The fifth method is to make friends with your inner critic. The best way to live your life with your inner critic in it is to make your peace. It's senseless to fight negativity with negativity, and you can't ignore it either. Don't argue or become angry with your inner critic. It will only increase its power over you and the strength of the negativity coming at you. Avoid the increase in negative emotions by welcoming your inner critic. Listen to it rather than fight it. Recognize the fact that the inner critic actually wants the best for you and is there to protect you rather than stir up internal conflicts. Create a more collaborative relationship with your inner critic. Replace it with a motivating and supportive voice that will help you in a more constructive manner. So, pay attention to your inner critic, control your inner critic, make it your friend.